have clothed in brilliant red. Still I'm the one you love more than this. You give me everything. You give me everything. You give me everything I need. Even the oceans push and pull at your command, so you can still my heart with your hand. You tell the seasons when it's time for them to turn, so I will trust you even when it hurts. You give me everything. You give me everything. You give me everything I need. You give me everything. You give me everything. You give me everything I need. When I can't see you, lead me. When I can't hear you, show me. When I can't stand, you carry me. When I'm lost, you will find me. When I'm weak, you are mighty. You are everything I need. You give me everything. You give me everything. You give me everything I need. You give me everything. You give me everything. You give me everything I need. You give me everything. You give me everything. You give me everything I need.
Most Australians know about the Royal Flying Doctor Service, but many don't know the background of the founder. The Royal Flying Doctor Service was founded by John Flynn. It was his passion and his vision. Flynn was a Presbyterian minister. Now, he didn't give up his role as a pastor to start the Royal Flying Doctor Service. It was part of what motivated him. In his early years, he was an outback pastor, and he listened to the needs and the concerns of the people in the outback. It motivated him to start this service. Flynn didn't use technology that was available to him. He actually invented the technology both in the planes and communication that people would go on to use in the future. Flynn wasn't unusual for the Christian church. There are many people that recognise that faith is not just about looking after yourself, but serving the least, the last and the lost. The Royal Flying Doctor Service is another demonstration that faith runs deep in our nation. The Royal Flying Doctor Service was not started by the government.
Not at all, no. It grew out of the imagination of one young bloke, actually, yeah.
Wow, who was that?
John Flynn, and he lived in backcountry Victoria around Horsham before the turn of the 20th century, son of a school teacher. Got a heart, at 16 he got a call from God. He felt, I want to do something for Australia. And he went to Bible college, didn't do all that well. They sort of fluffed him out the door. He ended up a circuit preacher in Gippsland. He borrowed a saying from a missionary, Wilfred Grenfell, over in Canada. He said, if you want to commend your gospel to men, you first of all do something for them that they understand.
Yeah.
He'd written a letter to his dad at 21, said, you know, Dad, if the gospel of Jesus is the real thing, we need to find a way of expressing it to the people of the bush. It's no good building churches out here. They need hospitals.
So one of the things Flynn had to deal with was communication.
Absolutely. One of his brilliant stories was a young guy who was injured in the back of Western Australia. His mates dragged him in on a cart 100 kilometres to a telegraph station. Telegraph operators on there giving Morse code to Perth, 2,000 kilometres away. Doctors on the Morse code on the other end. You'll have to operate. What have you got? Got a razor blade and some Condy's crystals. So 2 men held him down. This bloke does his operation on this guy's gut.
On Morse code?
On Morse code, getting instructions from Perth. Perth, meanwhile, the doctor gets on the boat. He's 12 days getting up there, and when he gets there, the bloke had died that morning before he got there. So Flynn took that story and he told it all over Australia, saying that's why we need flying doctors.
Yeah.
The original idea, I should say, came from a young guy who was going to the First World War. He wrote a letter to Flynn, Clifford Peel. He said, you know, I think we could use planes as ambulances, and he died in the war, so he didn't get to see it, but Flynn ran with it. That was his genius. He could take an idea and then he'd find people who could help him make it happen. He recruited Hudson Fysh, who was the founder of Qantas, of course. He helped Flynn use planes like this so we could slide a patient in that side door there.
So the patient comes in the door?
Through the side door there, yeah, and the doctor climbs in there, pilot's sitting outside, and off they go.
I remember being in Melbourne and a guy I worked with in Melbourne, dear friend, he used to do these small group questions where he'd say, reflect back on your family, you know, those sorts of questions, not my favourite questions, but anyway. And I would actually say, I have no reflection, like, because family life was not my parents and 3 kids. It was my parents and 20 kids. Well, that's a very different world. My dad came to faith in 1962, and he thought he might want to become a minister. Anyway, the local bishop in the Armidale diocese said to him, look, I don't know about going into ministry or becoming a local church minister, but I've got a job for you. We've got a children's home. Will you come and run it? And so in 1968, he agreed with Mum to run this children's home. It's called Coventry Home. It's just one great big house in the edge of Armidale. And there were 18 kids on a revolving door.
We house young people experiencing homelessness, so ages 15 to 21. We also support young people at risk within the region with casework support, mentoring, helping them with mediation within family situations, so we do a lot of training with parents and supportive parents. But then we also do camps and fun things. We really want to raise up the next layer of civic responsible human beings, radical Jesus followers.
So Andy, why red frogs?
Mate, we were crashing parties back in the day. The hotels that have us in the buildings, teams of four going floor to floor, looking after kids, passed down rooms. We're having trouble getting into doors. We'd be knocking on the doors and they'd go, "Who are you guys?" And it took us about 10 minutes to explain who we were. But we went to a local corner store, got a big bag of these red frogs, went back up to the schoolie's building. We knocked on this door. As soon as the door opened, they just went, "Red frogs!" dragged us in and just got us into parties straight away.
You do a lot of visits to prisons, driving either a ute or a replica race car into a prison with Jesus all over it. How does that go?
Yeah, look, the prisons is amazing. I love the prisons. It's I guess my favourite thing that I do in all the activities, because it's just so real. For the guys that are there, it's real, and so it's surprisingly it's surprising the reaction you get. They love it. I mean, they absolutely love it. Demographically, they're probably guys that like racing and cars and that sort of stuff. And they've seen me race on television. They kind of know, who I am. It's a great conversation starter to drive a big loud V8 into the middle of a jail where no one else has ever been before.
Flynn seemed to have a couple of key motivators. What were they?
Well, as I said, it began with his heart to serve God, but then he could see that it wasn't enough just to sort of preach sermons. He needed to express his sermons.
The young people that find themselves in a homeless situation and need support, is there a summary of what the issues are, or is it wide?
So it is pretty wide, but there's some commonalities. So a lot of the young people that come here, they've come from a home that is not safe. So it might be a family violence situation, it might be that there's drug use in that house, or sometimes, sadly, there's a mental illness that is not being maintained or addressed.
So Andy, in 1997 you found yourself in Schoolies Week in the Gold Coast. Why were you there?
Mate, so I was running skateboarding clubs in Brizzy for 5 years, and my young skaters got to year 12 and went down the coast. And back in the day, it was a pretty dangerous place, a lot of fights and one-punch incidents, and I was really worried about my young crew that were down there, so I actually went down to look after them. Actually, you gave me a ring to come down.
What happened there, what experience there kind of influenced you most?
Mate, just seeing 30,000 on the Gold Coast and like stuff coming off buildings and kids doing nudie runs down Surfers Paradise and Main Mall, and just seeing hotel managers with these eyes like dinner plates going, how do I look after 400 young people in my building? And being a youth worker, I felt so sorry for them, mate. I went, yeah, look, do you want a hand?
It's one thing to talk about racing and the race car. What's the message that you bring to a bunch of prisoners?
Yeah, so in prison I talk about the notion of legacy. This is a moment in your life, the past is the past. We can't change our history. So the only thing we can really focus on is what is going to be our legacy. Everybody's got the opportunity to actually define what our legacy is going to be. And our history, even though it influences who we've become, doesn't have to control who we're going to be. And so it's really challenging to stop and think about that and say, well, it may be your circumstances that have contributed towards you being here. It may be the people you're hanging with that's contributed towards the you being here. It's probably something to do with you in there as well. And so, it's up to you to make your life count for something.
I'm founder of Brave Foundation, and I think it's now, we call it the 15-year overnight success. And it is meeting the need of expecting and parenting teens in Australia. But the reason that I started Brave in those very humble beginnings was because it was my story. Met a boy who went to a local state school. We'd been going out for 6 months, and the least likely thing ever happened, and I was going to be having a baby. And so I can remember for my dad, that was just the, you know, all of the blood drained out of his face, and he didn't know how to respond. You know, he had plans and a dream and a future for me, and Dad, he'd had a tough life himself. You know, he worked 2 jobs so that we could have the outcomes that he never had. And this was his eldest daughter. And so Dad actually, he didn't talk to me until the end of my pregnancy. And it was really, really hard. Wow. And it was at the end of my pregnancy that he gave me a beautiful book, which was a mother and baby care book, and it just had a few lines in it, which is so special to me now. And it just said, "Dear Bern, I know you'll be a great mum. Love, Dad."
When you see your parents doing something and you're not sure what you're going to do, there's a bit of a, oh, I could do what they did. You know, I could do something like that. And so there's a natural draw towards it, which I kind of thought I might do. I don't think I would have been very good at it. But I think there's a call to service, and a call to commitment, and a call to sacrifice, and a call to giving yourself to other people. I think they're the essence of the call. And that life is not about just doing what you can for yourself. Life is about giving to other people. And that was their call. So you've said it's better now than it used to be, but what do those volunteers do?
Oh, look, the dangers are still there. We've seen a 75% drop in sexual assaults over schoolies weeks, and one of the key things is the walk home teams. We do over 5,000 walk homes during schoolies, where our teams find schoolies passed out down the beaches, walking home by themselves, and walk them home safely. We put a GPS tracker on one of our walk home teams. They average about 21 Ks a night. Should be called Red Frog Biggest Loser over that time too. But through that early intervention, harm prevention is so important, and just getting to things just in time, not after time. And we've seen a great reduction in sexual assaults, alcohol intoxes, and all those things because of that early intervention.
You're living under the same roof as a whole bunch of people that come in here with a mixture of values, morals, behaviour. There must be some tension points there.
Yeah.
And so how do you cope with those?
Yeah, like Jesus sitting and eating with prostitutes and, you know, tax collectors, and yeah, absolutely there is.
Yep.
I love it, to be honest, Carl.
In the middle of all that, what brings you the most joy?
Yeah, just the little things. I love walking in here and seeing one of the young people has set the table because they're ready for hanging out with everyone. I love laying in bed sometimes at night, in the morning, and hearing the doors start to open. You can hear the bedroom doors unlatch, and you can hear like a little hum of talking, of interacting, and every day holds new possibilities for them. So to listen to that hum of the day and pray for them is pretty special, and it leads me to be very grateful to be a part of this.
When I was sharing with other people, you know, that I can't find a national organisation that can help me finish my education because I have a little one, people were like, really? In 2009 or in 2015 or in... Seriously, there's not a charity that does this. Wow. You know, my story is just one story of many, 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 many stories, and you know, I want to hear their stories. I want to hear how they're finding things now. I've worked with young carers where we had one young woman and her mum and dad had both passed away very unexpectedly, both before Christmas, only a couple of years ago, and she all of a sudden became the sole carer at a very young age, still a teenager herself, of her 8-year-old brother. And you know, at that moment, to suddenly be flung into being the sole carer at 16 or 17 she was, of her brother, and then she still has goals, dreams and aspirations. And you know, teen parents, they're a cohort that actually, there are many cohorts within. So there are high rates of domestic and family violence, high rates of mental health issues, and also with disability.
I just tell them in truth that, I think I've got a competitive advantage in my life. And my faith, what it does is it basically gives me a hope that life's not just about me. It's not just about this exact moment in time, that I can be something different, I can improve and grow as an individual.
Yeah.
But it also gives me a compass to help navigate through the complexities of life. I say to them, today I want you to take a book, I want you to write down the one thing that will stop you coming back here. But the one thing, and normally for most guys that will be their children or their partner. And I challenge them to write it down, so when they get out and they're faced with that moment where someone's trying to take them in a place or a direction that they don't want to go, pull it out and have a look at it. Remind yourself of this exact moment that you made the commitment to yourself. You're not making a commitment to me, you're making a commitment to yourself.
Do you hear later?
Yeah,
Do you get some feedback?
I've had guys come up to me at the race meet, 4 or 5 years later, and bring their young son up and say, I just want you to meet my son, and they say to their son, this is the guy that made me write your name down.
How did they overcome the communication issue?
Well, he went to AWA, who were the big knobs in radio, and he said, I need this, and they said, I'll be decades before we get anything like that anybody can use out there in the bush. He said, I haven't got decades, I need it now. So he found a young radio nerd down in a little shed down the back of Adelaide, a guy called Alfred Traeger, until one day Traeger hit on this idea of pedals. We'll use pedals. So the pedal radio came into being, and that gave the dumb bush a voice, as somebody said. So women who were living in the bush on isolated stations suddenly could find safety in communications. What an amazing gift that was.
Now, the intriguing thing is we think about that for the Flying Doctor Service, but it actually had all sorts of uses, didn't it?
Well, as they developed it, of course, it grew into more sophisticated radio sets, and then they got the idea of, well, kids could do lessons, because one of Flynn's great dreams was to make the bush habitable for families, and with families would come the expansion of industry.
Yeah.
But all these things came out of a little idea like this that grew, one seed, and what it spread to. Make your life count for something. Yeah. And that's what I think this is an expression of one young man's faith who wouldn't be daunted, and he got blokes like Alfred Traeger to come alongside and invent a radio, or a Hudson Fish to sort of say, yeah, we can make this thing fly. And women who'd go out there and live in these isolated places to serve the people of the outback. What a wonderful gift we've got here in Australia. This is just one example of many of what men and women of courage and faith and self-sacrifice, because they gave up their lives to this, to make this happen.
I look back now and I'm not sure how my parents survived. They got through it just by turning up every day and doing what they're called to do. But I know that faith was their motivation, was key in their thinking, and is why they did what they did. It was a gift for every kid in that home. Personally, is faith a part of that for you?
Oh, faith's been a massive journey for me. I come from a non-church background and started going to church when I was 17. I call it like a spiritual wedgie experience, as I got reefed by the big fella saying, Goulet, life's not about your accounting degree, your mates, your Reds memberships. It's actually about him and others. And it totally messed with me that, hey, I need to be thinking about something bigger than myself. And Red Frogs wouldn't exist without that faith experience, without that faith journey, and that incredible experience at 17 for me, which radically changed my life.
What was the moment where you thought, this is what I should do?
Yeah, there's a couple. One was that barbecue that turned into a Bible study, that community has been around us now for our whole Christian walk. And we were at one of those gatherings and we were doing, the right kind of Bible study where Jesus is reaching out and touching lepers, or perhaps it was interacting with a prostitute. I wish I could remember the exact scripture. And then the conversation then with the set questions emerge of how do you participate that in your daily life? And so I really think we were being called over a long period of time. And it was, there was a very strong essence that season was ending and we needed to walk into this one, which was very frightening because we walked into an unpaid missionary role with no security long-term of how we would even exist. We packed up a nice 3-bedroom house with a pool, and gave away a lot of our stuff to move into an accommodation service alongside homeless people. Our daughter was 8 and we've been here 13 years.
So this started on the Gold Coast, but where is it now? Is it other states, other countries, other institutions?
Yeah, mate, Schoolies for us is 17 locations in Australia, plus 3 islands in Fiji. Bali. We also do 7 locations in South Africa and also Zimbabwe. But our university programs got into New Zealand, South Africa, Wales, Scotland, England, 21 cities in Canada, and now frat houses in the US. So it's about 1.3 million uni students around the world our programs in. We also do music festivals, sporting events, board rider events, anywhere that young people get to, the Froggies are there.
Each person is a gift. None of us have everything right, but that gift is important to hear from, to learn, to understand. And because I'm willing to hear someone in their world, it opens up the possibility for me to share who I am and my experience. And you hear people soften to who Jesus is.
And what are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Good question. At the moment, we are advocating and working on a plan to provide housing on site for families experiencing homelessness. At times we've had a lot of mums here that don't have custody over their child due to their housing or are pregnant. We would like to house those women to teach them to be brilliant mums and help them to keep custody of their children, to have the kinds of skills where the DHS aren't going to take their child away.
Yeah.
Sorry. And in that, the cycle of homelessness for those individuals ends.
Yeah.
For me, I knew when I, had this sense in prayer that my job is to be able to share the love of Christ with whoever is in front of me, actually, and whoever I have the privilege to be sitting with, whether that's with, a teen parent, whether that's with someone when I go to the service station in the morning, whether that's a stakeholder I'm meeting with or a parliamentarian. It actually doesn't change. And what's God's job is to be able to use that love, and I might not ever see where that lands for that person's life into the future. From now, being able to see the doors that have been opened and the wonderful lives that we've had the privilege of being involved with and seeing generations changed, it's just magnificent to have created something. And now that I can be a small part of as founder, but actually that there's a whole team and a CEO that is just building that into something that is actually going to stand on its own in front of other nations for them to adopt. So it's wonderful to see that.
I think if you do things that other people notice, there's this almost like there's a reward there. I'm doing all this hard work, but here's the reward. I'm working hard, but here are these people recognising what I'm doing. They did work that nobody else would do now. People just would not do that now. They changed the lives of dozens and dozens of kids who had no other opportunity, and almost nobody knows. That's a remarkable thing.
Bless the Lord.